folks, welcome back to Game Geeks. I'm your host, Kurt Wiegel. Today's episode, we are reviewing the Last Parsec series for Savage Worlds role-playing game by Pinnacle Entertainment. The Last Parsec was a Kickstarter that was run in 2014, which was the launch of a space opera game specifically for use of the Savage Worlds system. Now, sci-fi is not necessarily all that new to Savage Worlds. Off the top of my head, I can think of a few others. You had Slipstream, which was sort of the Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon, pulpy sci-fi game. Triple Ace Games gave you Daring Tales of the Space Lanes, which were individual adventures which utilized some more pulpy style rules, but for more of the Star Trek Star Wars sort of feel for the game itself. You had blasters, you had aliens, etc. What Last Parsec did, they did a few things differently with this one than they have done in their previous Kickstarters, which include Weird Wars Rome and East Texas University, among others. In this one, rather than give you a book specifically about rules, new interpretations of rules, etc., for the sci-fi setting, they are saying, get the science fiction companion, which we have previously reviewed here on Game Geeks. Get the science fiction companion. That is that initial rule set that you need in order to play in the Last Parsec universe. So, with those two books in mind, with the Savage Worlds Deluxe core rules and the science fiction companion, you then can get into the individual products of the Last Parsec. The three main books that have been produced, which are still in PDF form, will be in hard copy form sometime in early 2015, from what I understand. Those initial books each is a plot point campaign. So instead of a single plot point campaign, which you've gotten in some of the previous versions of the Savage Worlds big year productions, this time it is 3 campaigns. Now each one of these focuses on one piece of this Last Parsec universe. The idea behind the Last Parsec is you work for an organization called Jump Corps, which is just basically an excuse to give you stuff to do, to give you assignments. And then you go about and you do stuff at the fringes or just beyond the rim of known galaxy. It's a pretty wide open campaign frame, and it's also one that if you feel like being adventurous, you can choose to ignore completely, which, I'll be honest, I'm kind of a rebel. I tend to do stuff like that and then mine books for ideas. Now, these campaigns, located in individual books, include Leviathan, the Sciencethorium, and Eros Beta 5. Because there's a campaign and adventures contained in each one of these, I'm going to have to start talking about them in sort of vague emotional terms, because I don't like to give things away. I'll do my best, and I'm going to start with Leviathan. The idea behind Leviathan is that it is science fiction set specifically around one planet, the titular planet, Leviathan. The idea is this entire planet has been turned into a giant nature park preserve for people to come study the animals, go on safari, take a vacation, etc. In that way, it sort of reminds me of single planet sci-fi such as the game Blue Planet, or in the science fiction universe Dune before it got expanded out. So there's a lot of detail given about this one planet, particularly one species of critter that roams that planet, and I'm going to mispronounce this and I apologize in advance, the Lacerons, which are essentially the name of the megafauna that roam around this planet. Most of them are dinosaur or giant reptoid type. There are a few giant bug types, which is interesting because all their name translates to is really big bug, which is a little disturbing for some people. They describe them as large insectoid-like organisms, but instead of exoskeletons, they exist on hydrostatic pressure, so they're more like big bugs made out of tongues, as if that isn't horrible enough for people to think about. The idea of the campaign on Leviathan is you work for Jump Corps as security and as rangers on this planet, getting people to where they need to go, getting them out of trouble, stopping them from doing bad things. The campaign itself deals with a terrorist organization that is doing nefarious things, and obviously there are links to secret histories and secret agendas all the way around on this planet. There's not much in the way of new rules other than a couple of tips about survival because it is a different planet. But one of the things I like about it is you don't get a lot of science fiction that is dedicated to one planet and one planet only. We're kind of used to the Star Trek, Star Wars model where we go for hopping from planet to planet without a lot of detail or attention spared to what each one is. Now, the second campaign frame that I'm going to talk about is Eros Beta 5. In this, you are still centered around one planet, but it's a giant gas giant. And you're not as much interested in the gas giant itself as the things that are orbiting around it. You have a series of shepherd moons, and you've got a large ring structure that contains broken fragments of planets and broken fragments of alien technology. And the premise here is, as Jump Corps employees, you're involved with prospecting and mining those fragments. Now that's a more dangerous job than it sounds because you've got to get into this moving minefield of fragments, moving minefield of pieces. You got to go along with the flow. In some areas the rotation is greater or lesser. And then you've got the shepherd moons that all come around and sweep through them. So this is a very dangerous mining gig that you're working on. The treasures that you're looking for, in addition to resources like ore, is you're looking for alien artifacts or pieces of an alien spaceship that might still be existing buried somewhere in the ring structure of this planet. Once you're wandering around in there, there is again sort of a secret history backstory there that I don't want to go into because it deals directly with the campaign that it presents to you. But the way that alien artifacts are represented are with the powers system. So there's not a lot of new rules that you have to learn or a lot of new interpretations. It's just applications of the powers, which normally you only get through psychic abilities in the Science Fiction Companion and the Last Parsec. So you could have an alien artifact that gives you boost trait or spider climb or whatever you want represented in there. Again, there's a backstory, but with both of these so far, you've got your campaign, which is loose enough that you can fit individual adventures in between them. It's not that hard or railroady of a campaign in either case. There are also the option for Savage Tales, which are individual stories of their making that you can intersperse, which often just seed you for individual adventures and stories of your ideas, which you can also intersperse contained therein. Further along that, there are, I don't want to call them full adventure generators, but there's stuff that you do if you just decide to wander into the rings. Things that you can find that are randomized based on cards and dice that you find. Finally, the final Uber Arc campaign adventure that you have for this is the Sciencethorium, which is probably my favorite of the adventures, even though in my opinion it labors under the least fortunate name. The idea, and I have to tread very carefully here because the big mystery of the Sciencethorium is directly tied into the campaign idea, but the idea behind it is there is a giant artifact that is hidden outside of known space and largely forgotten about for a very important reason. But unlike the Star Forge in Knights of the Old Republic fame, or unlike the Planet Killer from Star Trek, this is just a receptacle of information of a long dead race. And in a lot of ways, it is the ultimate weapon. Because what it allows you to do is gain access to information that is thousands, if not millions of years old. One of the other deeper mysteries are the stringers or the librarians that currently maintain the archives in the Sciencethorium, and the fact that you gain information through a rather unique way through this. The adventure itself deals with someone who is looking for this mythical artifact, which at the beginning is about as mysterious as Avalon or the Flying Dutchman. It may or may not exist, but you're hired to help this person find it. And then what the hilarity that ensues after its location is the drive of the plot point campaign. The Savage Tales around it deal with either finding it, getting there, or other information you have once you're there or once you leave from it. In addition to these three main campaign arcs, You have an adventure called the Enigma Equation that comes with the GM screen, which is a bit more straightforward than the large arcs. This is intended to be played out in an adventure or two. One of the questions I had going in is, are these 3 campaigns linked if you want them? Or linked if, like, do you need all 3 to form some big picture or some big grander mystery that's going on? And the answer is, if you want there to be. There are connections, albeit subtle and not necessarily needed, for each one of these to link together. Additionally, part of the Kickstarter was they gave you figure flats of pre-generated characters, which were also provided in the Kickstarter. You have figure flats of some of the monsters. You have nice poster maps, which are dry erase writable, of a variety of spaceships, including a pirate vessel, a research vessel, and a drop ship and freighter. Nice wallpaper art, some individual ace tales, which are their one-shot adventures. If you want an open-ended science fiction setting, this is it for you. This is one of the best I've ever seen. Part of the Jump Core campaign is you can have an excuse to all you're really doing is working for an organization that can feed you adventures. It saves your GM from coming up from you're wandering from planet to planet looking for something a la Farscape, which I hold near and dear to my heart, but it can be a very difficult campaign to run from the outside. It gives you an excuse. So could you be doing the laser campaign, which is what you see in Ashing Stars, another upcoming review, where you are freelance law enforcement? Sure, Jump Corps can do that. Could you be explorers or prospectors looking at new regions of space? Sure, Jump Corps can do that. Jump Corps is not presented as an evil overmind organization, which I was kind of relieved to see. That there's not some dark secret that Jump Corps is doing. It's really just window dressing as an excuse for you to do stuff. I love this. In fact, it's excited me. The quality of the books is quite exciting. The campaigns themselves are extremely well realized. The one I didn't think I would like is Leviathan, but as I got into it, I thought, you know, this is really cool. And I can see how individual planet science fiction works. For Game Geeks, I'm your host, Kurt Wiegel. Good day and good gaming.